Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Diary Room. We are chugging along, getting through this first round of this bracket as we have already gone through. I don't even know how many players already, but it feels like a good amount. I think we've hit over 50, if not close to it. I think we've gotten that far. But we're going to keep going. 6 more players are going to come up today. 3 more will go through. 3 more will stay behind. We have a great guest before we bring him in. Of course, I am Matt alongside Aman. Aman, how's it going?
Hello, Matt, and hello, everyone else. Happy to be back for yet another installment of BB mashups, or matchups, rather. Let's see, the glee is still...
We could do the mashups.
It's still sinking in. But yeah, I'm super excited. Super excited for our guest today. And yeah, I'm just the wheel. It's addictive at this point. I feel like it should be studied.
It is. And but as far as things to mention at the top here, of course, patreon.com/the diary room if you want all of the bonus content we have going on, including the votes to vote people back in when they lose the bracket, and just everything else we have going on there. You've heard the spiel before, but subscribe, like the video, comment below, all that kind of stuff to help keep the channel alive and fresh during the week as you're watching these episodes. So we appreciate all of that. But without further ado, Aman, do you want to let everybody know who we have with us here today?
Yes, of course. So we've been chugging along, having great guests so far, and that tradition continues with our guest today of BB24 fame. I had the pleasure of meeting him last year at Oz's House Shops, although he was not there this time, but that's okay. Michael Bruner is here, everybody. Super duper excited to have him. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Michael, I was just saying before we got on, I feel like you haven't done a ton of podcasts or things like this in the past year. So it feels like, as a fan and as a podcaster, it feels like a treat that we have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited to talk Big Brother. Sometimes people ask do you still like to talk? And we're like, yes, of course. It's still one of my favorite shows. So any chance to talk about it, I'm happy for.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you were like the only one of your cast that sort of like had their own Big Brother Bible. And like would study. Like I had like a whole binder full of information and stats and strategies. So this is the perfect podcast, I think, for you because you've already done all the research.
Yeah.
You might remember more things than we might. So we're really, really excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I mean, the wheel for the second time only now is going to feature every player that is still available from all of these different BB worlds, BB Can, BB US. I mean, on that topic, Michael, do you have I know that you played one of these versions, but that aside, would you say you have a strong standout as your favorite format of the franchise, Canada versus US?
Ooh, it's tough. I think with BB Can, I think the way that they redesign the house every season and the themes that they go with, I think compared to BB US in recent seasons, I prefer that aspect of BB Can. Some of their twists, some of them hit really hard and some of them kind of massively miss. So it's a little more hit or miss, but I obviously love both franchises. But I don't know. I think it just comes down to the players, and whichever one casts the messier group, that's my favorite.
So usually that's BB Can, in my opinion. I mean, obviously it depends on the season, but I don't know. BB Can was hitting some home runs with the cast and, missing some stuff with everything else, but that's besides the point. And just in general, Michael, how you doing since, it's been 2 years now since your season. And again, since we haven't heard too much from you in that time frame, how's life going? Well?
Yeah, life's good. I think when I, went into Big Brother, it was, I love the game. I want to play it. And then I want to go back and use my degree and go back to regular life. So that's what I did. So I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. I'm sort of like upset, and you're like, I'm not sure if you feel similarly. You might. I mean, I feel like I would, but you became the first person in so long to beat Janelle Pierzierna's record of veto wins in a single season, and then just one season later, Mr. Jag Baines then ends up beating that record. I mean, we can go and talk about just how much that actually accounts for anything, being that so many of the comps last season were so heavily towards physical competitors. But you happen to win like a wide array of comps. So like, what did it feel like to like know that you had beaten that record as a big fan of the game? And then, if you care to share, were you sort of sour about the fact that it was so short-lived?
Yeah, it was crazy because like going in, obviously I had my stat book, my Bible. So like I knew that I had beat it, but I didn't want to tell anyone that. So like,
why would you?
I only talked about it in the DR, but because there were times in the house too, and people were like, well, like I wonder what the record is. Like, I wonder if you're close to it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But but yeah, it was really surreal. Like going in, I was like, okay, I think I'll be able to hold my own. I felt really confident about like kind of the end game comps, about remembering events from the season, and I didn't even make it to any of those. So I definitely surprised myself. But yeah, that was a super cool, piece of BB history to be a part of for however short it was. But but no, and I last year, I defended Jag on his wins because he did what I should have done and gotten rid of the people who could beat me in competition. So
right.
Fair. Yeah, I think that there did get to a point last season where we were seeing a lot of the same types of competitions, and I like to see a wide array of different things, to see different skill sets. But I don't think anyone can take away from Jag what he did, and he brought the right people that he needed to. So all props to him, and good for him.
You may have said this at some point in some kind of interview or anything, but like, when did it click in for you during your season that you were like, okay, I'm going to be the guy that's just winning all these comps? Like, did it just happen, or did like something like switch in your brain to be like, all right, I've won 1, I've won 2, I've won 3, just keep winning?
Yeah, I think after OTEV, I think because I was like, looking back, I was like, oh, I should have thrown that, should have done that. I was like, I think it's too late. Maybe I'll be able to just slip back under somehow. And then Daniel in his speech was like, and don't forget, Michael, he's winning an average of like 1 thing a week. I'm like, okay, great. And I think, in hindsight too, whenever you win something, you're like, oh, I could have thrown that. I was like, well, you never actually know what would have happened. Like if I had thrown a veto when I wasn't HOH, maybe the target shifted to me. So, that's a very fair criticism of my game that I'll take, that I won too much early on. But I'm also like, I would have rather went out for winning too much than, week 2 or 3 not have won something and then been out pre-jury. So
for sure,
what can you do?
I mean, I loved it. I loved seeing you win all those competitions. Was it always the best thing for your game? We can talk about that till the cows come home. But like, just seeing you, like, as a fan, like I knew that you were a fan of the game. So seeing you like rack up those wins, I was like, oh my God, he must feel so good about being able to do this. And the fact that because we like stereotypically a lot of these comps are the same types of people. So it was great to see someone that is an out gay man. Like we had Frankie Grande because he was also a pretty good comp piece, but like there, we don't really see that a lot of the time. So I think that it speaks to just how much the game is beginning to diversify a bit more, and we are starting to see not the same types of people win over and over and over again. So I was cheering for you the whole time. I loved it. it.
Thank you.
To go back to the point about Jag, Michael still does have a record. If you put the asterisk back on Jag for most comp wins or most veto wins, is that what it is, without being evicted? I think is still a stat that you can probably put on a trophy somewhere in the house for a while. So
sounds a little less good when there's like an asterisk.
It's true. I mean, if you got to re-enter after you were evicted, think of all the comps you still could have continued to win. Just to
that chart data Twitter account that like always is like putting out data from like the Hot 100 and saying, oh, this artist has beat this record at this very obscure record. I feel like we need Pop Crave does do that, but like they get that idea from chart data, which is like a bigger account. I feel like there should be a chart data for Big Brother where we just have obscure records.
There's for any challenge fans out there, you guys know challenge stats, the great challenge stats Instagram and Twitter accounts that is that, but there's not a Big Brother version of that. I feel like there's some accounts that may dip their toes into it, but the market's open. Maybe
we shouldn't put this part out because now I feel like we should do it.
We'll see about that. But in the meantime, so Michael, we usually ask people at the top if they have any previous matchups that they wanted to get into. Before I turn that over to you, there are 2 specific matchups that I want to ask you about because 2 people of your cast so far have come up. Now, I'm sure this could get the last time that we had somebody come on, specifically speaking about their fellow cast member, the other cast member was in the other room, and that was America with Corey. Still don't know how that happened. It was wild. So I don't believe that Indy or Jasmine are in the other room of your home right now. If that's the case, you let us know.
They are not.
But the matchups that we've had so far from BB24, Indy took on Lawan and did lose that matchup. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I love Indy, and I will say this. At the BB25 premiere, I did meet Lawan, and there is he does have just such an energy about him, and where I think I can see why he was well liked by other players in the house on his season. I have to say I would ding him for the asking to be evicted, and I'm like Indy, as much as people said whatever her reasons for being on the show were, she never asked to be evicted. She really fought hard to stay the week that she went out. So I probably, maybe I'm a little biased from playing with her, but I probably would have given it to Indy. But I can also absolutely see where if they both came back, I think they would both at least make it to the jury phase. I think they're both likable people. So, but I can absolutely acknowledge, Lawan has become solidified in BB history.
Yeah.
Whether for something he wants to be remembered for, probably not, but he's definitely contributed a lot to the legacy of the show and continues to be a part of the community. And I think he's a very fun person.
Man, how do we get Lawan here to join us for an episode?
I'm definitely sure that he would come on. I can message him right now. I'm sure he would love to.
Let's do it. Maybe don't message right now, but let's look into that as well. And then Michael, the other matchup was Jasmine versus Big Brother 3's Tanya. Now I know you're a super fan. Do you have immediate recall to get Tanya, a picture of Tanya in your head?
I feel bad saying it, but I remember Marcellus's comment about Tanya. That's the first thing I think of when he's it's a stripper masquerading as a mother. And
oh my god! Yeah,
I don't want to put that out there and bring that back. But that's the first thing that pops in my head, because unfortunately she was a week 2 evictee, I believe. Yeah. So there just wasn't as much time for her to show everything that she had, and unfortunately that's one of the big things that people remember, I feel like. But I absolutely agree with Jasmine winning that matchup. I think Jasmine is a big fan of the show. I think she really did have she had some very good reads on the house. I think unfortunately she found herself not in the Power Alliance, and so there wasn't a lot that she could a lot of room for her to maneuver her way out of that, especially with the week she went out being the split house thing. So it was down to 2 groups of 5. There really isn't anywhere to hide there. So I definitely agree that she was the winner of that matchup.
And we literally just had that conversation a little bit ago with Mike Bloom, and I know you haven't gotten a chance to hear it yet, but we were talking. I'm kind of reminding ourselves as we went. That was you picked that group, right? For that inside group. And are we correct in remembering that you picked Jasmine kind of specifically to have her as an option to be evicted if that worked out that way?
Yeah, because I remember how it had worked out. It was within the leftovers, because Terrence had won the other HOH. It was my options for a non-leftover target were Jasmine and Alyssa, and I felt like Alyssa would have taken it more personally or been more hurt, perhaps, because I both Alyssa and Jasmine were big fans, but I thought that Jasmine's she'll if she does leave this week, and in my goodbye message I can explain why I think I have a better chance of keeping potentially that jury vote. But yeah.
So this isn't about her actually being better than Tanya. This is you to assuage your guilt for sending her to her death. I see.
No. And I some of the interviews that I remember doing after 24 was I think that was one thing that that was probably one of the biggest mistakes that I looked to in my game, was sending Jasmine home. I think I should have seen that there was more potential for the two of us to work together, because she was a fan, because I think that it was someone who approached the game in a bit of a similar way, in that I'll work with whoever, and whoever's going to get me farthest. Yeah. So I appreciate that type of player, and I probably should have, looked a little more into that, but I was, I think a little too worried about playing cleanly and, not stabbing this big alliance in the back and then having that come back to bite me in the end. But
right. No, I mean, I said it on the podcast. I feel like as the season progressed, I started to like Jasmine a lot more. Obviously, you know, with the whole anti-Taylorness of it all in the beginning, it was like sort of like a bit of a mountain to climb for a few of your castmates. But definitely she, you know, I could see that she did want to be there, and that she did have like a reverence for the game and her, you know, outside of the house. I enjoy Jasmine's content, so you know, I'm excited that she made it through on the first round because I'm interested to like really get down into more of the nitty gritty the next time that she comes up on the wheel to really slice and dice her game. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. You mentioned Alyssa, one of the 2 cast members, I believe, from your cast that have gone on to compete on the challenge. And just, I guess this is a 2-part question. Are you a challenge fan as well?
I like the challenge. I can't say that the current direction it's been going in has been my favorite. I love old school messy reality TV, and just, you know, kind of from following different castmates on you know, social media and hearing like all the fights that are apparently getting cut out of the final edit and things that we're not seeing. I'm like, oh, like I miss that aspect of the challenge. But I do like the show. Any sort of, you know, competition reality TV. I'm always down for.
Well, the second part of that is, are you on the record at all saying if you would go on that show or not? Have, you know, if they ever give you a call? Because you know, it's a very obvious question considering you were a Big Brother competition, you know, beast. Seems like a natural step if they were to call.
Yeah, I mean, if they called, yeah, I'd probably answer. Like when you think of the challenge, though, you know, I think of like the headbanger eliminations, the hall brawls and stuff.
It's not all the time.
I would probably be carried away in an ambulance if that were the case. But I think
one
the daily
thing about it.
Yeah, the daily challenges look like a lot of fun, and they're less.
They're not hall brawls every day.
Yeah.
Like it definitely feels like the challenge is like that one reality TV show where like it's sort of like wrestling. That is like there's weight classes. Like you need to be like, because if you're in that final elimination, those hall brawls, like if you don't have a good core, good muscle density, it's kind of over for you, which kind of sucks because like there are a lot of like good physical competitors. Just because they're not like stacked doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed on the show. So that's kind of.
Yeah, but there's also plenty of eliminations that are not, you know, a headbanger type deal. And there's also plenty of ways to keep yourself out of an elimination. So, you know, if we ever end up with the Challenge USA 3, then, you know, I would like to see you there. And I would like to not see you get run over by, you know, I don't know, Pauly Calafiore or somebody.
I don't think I would. I think I would probably, if I were ever to make it on a show, first of all, to like Big Brother or whatever, or Survivor first, and then get the call for the challenge, I think that I would very much decline. I'd be like, I'm sorry.
Well, you would say, first, let me watch one episode and then I'll decide.
I'd be like, girl, like, I'm not trying to be next to Pauly. I'm not trying to be next to Bananas. I'm not trying to be next to Corey. It's a no. I'm good.
Fair enough.
Not even Josh, and I love Josh, but no.
Yeah, you would just show up to be his ally and
I would
call it a day.
Okay. Show up for an appearance check.
Yeah. But before we get into our first wheel spin here, Michael, any other matchups stand out to you that either we got them wrong or I don't know, anything spark your interest as you saw through some of them?
Yeah, I will say I was very happy to see Rennie get some love. Rennie, I think, is a very underrated player. Like, she's obviously, everyone remembers her as a personality, but I think people forget, like, she was taken out because people were afraid to face her, you know, with the jury. So I was very excited to see that Rennie got some love because I adore her.
It was quite contentious.
It was only bittersweet. I mean, it was already bittersweet having Jamaica go, but like what made it worse was the thing that Evil Dick ended up being in the next matchup and got sent through. It's just like, damn. Like, I
still don't understand how that happened. I mean, because even like we didn't talk about this at the
rigging
time.
The wheel, and you won't admit.
All right, let's kick them on. But with the randomizer, and we can even like randomize it like live on the show here. Again, I've clicked it so many times, but the point of like randomizing it, and the point of like, I mean, the time that the wheel spins, I've tried so many different things to like make it not happen like that. But so Jamaica, you know, as far as the results go, it's Jamaica, Zach, Danny, Dick. And then if you go to BB9, the first person out there is Jacob. So Jamaica, Dick, and Jacob all came up in one episode. I'm like, what is wrong with this wheel? Like something feels broken here.
Wheel of fate.
But who knows? If we end up having that problem today and it happens to be BB24, I won't be upset.
I know I won't be upset either. I've been waiting for it. I'm like, I want a little bit of messiness. I want some salaciousness, okay?
Yeah. Well, I think we can get to it.
What's the mechanic on the wheel? Like, if you press the button multiple times, will it just keep spinning, or is it only one spin and that's it?
If I press it multiple times, if I press it right now, multiple times.
Yeah, like will it continue to spin until you stop clicking on it, or
I'm afraid it'll mess something up. I don't know. Maybe I'll test that out in the in between episodes and let you know.
Okay.
I don't want someone to get disqualified, or then you're really putting me in a position of the audience being like, "Oh, Matt's messing with it," even though you're the one telling me to do it. Shall we?
This wheel is packed. Yes, we shall.
It is packed again. Second time that a guest is giving us such a big spread of knowledge.
Oh my God, who's it gonna
First
be?
player up for Michael Bruner's episode is Big Brother Canada 2 getting into the mix here with some Rachelle. I not only have been, clamoring for BB Can in general to show up here, but the early BB Can seasons have not yet come up at all. So this is fun for me. Let's, Aman, go to our Rachelle notes and remind anybody a little bit about Rachelle.
Okay, Rachelle was best remembered for her friendship with Sabrina and betraying her former ally, Ika. Rachelle found herself nominated alongside Sabrina in week 8 and being seen as the bigger comp threat. Rachelle was evicted by a vote of 3-0, placing 6th. I feel like that's not like a good enough blurb for her. I feel like
we have to fill in the gaps. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Sure. But on a broader scope, Michael, as far as BB Can goes, do we have like favorite seasons? Does 2 come up for you? It's usually a consensus pick for people's top season of the show.
Yeah, I love season 2. I think that it was after Rochelle's HOH, I think was when Canada was HOH. And then I started to like it more because wasn't thrilled with how it was going at the very beginning. But I think for me, like 2 and 5 are probably the 2 of my favorites for sure. So very excited that BB Can 2 came up. There are, I think, a lot of really good players from this season and just a lot of really entertaining players as well.
And that's the thing. Before 5 entered the conversation, it was like 2 with a bullet. And this was also around a time where BBUS was kind of like having okay seasons and nothing was standing out. So I feel like when BB Can 2 came around, and this is before I jumped into BB Can, 3 was my first BB Can season live. But everybody was talking about BB Can 2, season 2 is the best. And for good reason, for sure. But I think it's kind of that conversation has been diminished as some other great BB Can seasons came along the way. But as far as Rachelle in this season, Aman, of course, she's part of this duo with Sabrina, and Sabrina ends up with the bigger legacy, fair to say, as a character on the show. But I would say, there's still plenty to talk about with Rachelle.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she sort of like had to sort of like find her footing in the beginning. And she's, she won an HOH early on. And I think that the thing that I always remember the most about Rachelle is sort of like her being the straight man in the melodramatic speech of Sabrina's in the backyard when they're at the hot tub in like the cold ass frigid Canadian weather, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Does everybody want good TV? Is that what they want?" Supposedly. So, yeah, Rachelle definitely had a lot to deal with in terms of like hitching her wagon to Sabrina. But I think that was probably one of the best moves that she ever made, because for all of the messiness that Sabrina had going on, she was a pretty solid player herself. And with Rachelle sort of like in her back pocket, it really, really helped her progress her game throughout BB Can 12 or 2, excuse me.
Yeah, 12. I mean, she seems like she could fit in with the women on that season.
Probably, yeah,
on 12. But yeah, she was like friendly with, the women of like the end game of this season, the Nettas and Allisons and obviously Sabrina, Heather. I feel like there was so many dynamics going on with the relationships in this end game, which is why it could have gone. I mean, it was always going to go in the direction of Netta and John getting to the end in some capacity because they were the strongest of these players. But everybody else, like, I feel like had their role. And Rachelle is like, she's so interesting as a human being because she doesn't stand out as like somebody that you would think has that edge to like, go to the end game and killer instinct that we've talked about a lot on, recent episodes. I don't know that she necessarily has that, but she still has like ability to win comps. I mean, she did only win one, but I feel like I would not bet against her in plenty of circumstances. And I feel like she's just like a little bit above replacement level, a little bit above in a good way. Is that a good thing? I feel like she's good. She's okay.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I feel like she had a lot of she got saved by she got pulled down by other people that had won the veto. Now some of that is like Rachelle's social game and her alliance, and some of it is also the fact that like they were looking to backdoor a bigger target, one of them being Arlie. So I do think that she definitely had, like, when she wasn't empowered, she was still sort of had a lot of her bases covered. I just think that the thing that we always wonder about players that happen to be in like big duos is like, what does her game look like without Sabrina? And I don't know if she makes it as far without Sabrina. But in the same respect, I don't
think she does.
I mean, what do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think Rachelle had she was in an interesting spot in a lot of ways because she had a lot of good relationships, I think, but she was close with people who were in the first 5 alliance, but she wasn't in that. Mm-hmm. She had decent enough relationships with people like who were in the the sloppy seconds, but she obviously wasn't part of that. And I think I remember when she won HOH, I was really excited because she had just been on, gotten blindsided, basically. She was voting with the women, I think, to take Heather out. And when Sarah flipped and that didn't happen and she won HOH, I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I think, with obviously how close she was with Sabrina going that direction. And I think that she had kind of salvaged being in that minority vote. And then she got hit with Canada being HOH. And then the people that she kind of got in good with were out the door. And then that was kind of the catalyst for the sloppy seconds to form. And because she had done that, she wasn't included in that. So I think that she had a lot of good social bonds. I don't know that she was ever really at the core of anything that I saw as super long lasting. But I think had there not been, the Canada's HOH twist, I think she would have, I think she would have lasted. I don't know, kind of like you were talking about when it gets down to it and the killer instinct. I don't know how she would have been able to shake it up, but I think she's a player who you throw her in that season and resimulate it a bunch. I think she probably makes it at least this far just about every time.
I think it's literally this far. I think this is like a perfect spot that she can expect to at least go to. And again, without at least personally, I feeling like she has that killer instinct to go a little bit farther. I could see a world where she ends up in like 4th place in the Heather spot instead of Heather in plenty of different circumstances. But I mean, that's only 2 spots away. So it's not like we're talking a huge difference there. Do either of you remember according to the Wikipedia chart, Rachelle cast a vote to evict Sabrina on the round that Kenny goes home. Michael, do you remember that happening or why?
I remember her doing it. And I forget what her reasoning was for it, but I think it was like briefly addressed the following episode because that was a double eviction. So we didn't get her DRs and everything. And then they've seemed to squash it pretty quickly and moved on. But I do remember watching it and being very surprised. I was like, oh, didn't see that one coming, but they got over it.
I mean, she still ended up casting a vote for Sabrina in the end, costing John the unanimous vote. So we love loyalty to a T. I mean, as far as like killer instinct goes, I mean, I guess like we can give her some props for like sort of knowing when to drop Ica, although Ica sort of like made that very easy after a certain amount of time. Which I'm still team Ica, okay? Still team Ica. Burn them letters, shred them letters. They was gonna vote your ass out anyway. Do what you need to do. But in terms of like Rachelle learning to pivot in the moment, it's like, I mean, you kind of had no choice. Like the girl, she was ready to go at that point. So, but I'll give her a little something for that in that respect.
She would have been a lot of fun if a returnee spot had happened to be open on BB Can 5. I mean, I know they had such a few spots to work with in the first place, and the spots that they did have, they filled with very obvious picks as well. But if it ended up being a full All-Stars that season, I think there's absolutely a world we could have seen her there.
Yeah, I think so too. for sure.
Yeah, she was a decent competitor, and obviously she made it decently far. But yeah, it would have been interesting because she was pretty young, if I remember.
She was.
So I think that even just a little age and experience goes a long way in Big Brother.
20 years old.
20 years old. Yeah,
crazy.
That's crazy. Jinx.
All right. Well, Rachelle is our first person up here today, and again, I was very happy to see BB Can come up, BB Can 2 come up. We're getting into some seasons that we haven't gotten to yet, so maybe this is a BB Can heavy episode, which would be great because again, Michael's got the knowledge. So, shall we spin again? Find out who Rachelle is up against. I want a good matchup here. Who was it recently? Was it Mike or Sasha that was saying that they wanted I think it was Mike that said they wanted like a mid matchup of like two players right in the middle there.
Yeah. That was Mike Bloom.
So, Mike, I know you're not here with us, but I'm hoping for something like that as well here. And by the way, you didn't see it, but I promise I shuffled like 4 times again.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. Rachelle is up against Aaryn from Big Brother 15. Now, speaking of manifesting, Sasha was looking for this in the last episode, and she missed her by 1 pick.
I completely blame Sasha for this. She put this mojo out.
Sasha, hold on, let me take a picture so I can text Sasha right now. The other thing for the nerd stats out there like me is this is Amon now the 7th matchup in a row of a man versus a man or a woman versus a woman.
I guess we're just really
don't know how that is going on there, but there we go. All right, remind us about Aaryn because none of us remember anything.
Oh yeah, what did she do again? Who is that? All right, Aaryn. She was at the center of controversy inside and outside of the house due to comments made that were racist and homophobic. Even being read back some of her comments during her eviction interview, Aaryn was also a huge comp threat, winning 4 HOH comps and 1 POV throughout her time in the game. Despite having a large target on her back for the majority of the game, Aaryn managed to survive 9 weeks before being evicted by a vote of 5-0. She placed 8th.
Where do we begin?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, we done already ripped off the Band-Aid for a couple of these players in BB15. They have been slowly but surely making their presence known. How many have we gone through? We've gone through quite a bit of BB15. McCrae, Helen, Amanda, Nick Uhas, now Aaryn Grease. Like, we're like a third of the way through at this point.
We are ripping the Band-Aid off as best we possibly can. And we've gotten some of the biggest, reasons why we don't want to talk about Big Brother 15 slid off the board. Okay, so I've said before, did not watch the season live, but when you're rewatching it, knowing what you're getting into, knowing the people that you're watching for specific reasons, like in Aaryn, I mean, I'm not thinking about her gameplay once as I'm watching what's going on here. So, I mean, I'm going to need at least Amon or, either one of you guys to kind of walk through where she was in the game because I wasn't paying attention to that stuff.
So, I mean, okay, I think what I will give Aaryn, I think one of the best things that she did in the game, aside from being the comp beast that she was her 3 a.m. alliance with Makranda and Andy. I think that setting that up during the mid game really was what helped her stay with that big target on her back because she was on the outs from the get-go. And again, similarly to Nick Uhas, we can give her a little bit of grace because of the fact that Alyssa kept winning the MVP. And that really put because like this BB15 was set up for the cool kids to run the gamut, right? You had your Caitlyn and Jeremy and Nick and all those people and David. They were all set up to steamroll throughout the rest of the house. But that MVP in Alyssa really shook some things up, and Aaryn's like top ally went home first. So that really, she had to sort of like play from the back, and she won the comps and I think she won like the 2nd or 3rd HOH and put Alyssa and Helen's ass right on up and made them both have-nots because she was like, she was that girl to just be ruthless. Okay, so definitely killer instincts all the way there. Now, obviously, the stuff that came out of her mouth really puts a damper on things. I mean, all of us are still referring to that disclaimer at the beginning of each episode, the Aaryn disclaimer. She's decided to rear her head again this past season, which, look, there's been a lot of time that has happened. I'm not really here to judge whether or not she's changed. I don't really care, to be honest. But I will say that the girl, similarly to like a lot of her castmates, she came to play. She played a very strong and dominant game. I just think towards the middle, her allies within 3AM sort of all had their own separate agendas that they wanted to achieve, and she sort of like fell out of that. And I think that's sort of like the nail in the coffin for her game in the end.
Yeah. The one, I don't know, is this positive? Is it the one thing that I will give you regarding Aaryn is I watch Aaryn drinking nail polish remover once a year. At least, if not twice. And it's just, I've never laughed harder watching Big Brother, maybe ever watching reality TV. It's close between that and the first time that on Survivor, when not the first time, the only time when Russell Swan said, "Lord, I mean Jeff." Both of those tickled me in a way that I will never forget, and they still do to this day.
The funniest thing about that, actually, aside from her drinking the nail polish remover, because first of all, like, it'd be one thing if like they were in similar containers, because she had water and she had nail polish.
She picked up
the like hourglass shaped nail polish remover, drove it to your lips, and then looking at the bottle, chucked it back. Like there was a series of miscalculations there that I don't understand.
Andy's like, why did you do that?
Remover. What's wrong with you, girl? And aside from that, like, funny editing note with that scene is that that happened while Helen was still in the house. But because they decided to put that in as filler after Helen had already been evicted, they retouched it and completely scrubbed.
Oh no!
It's just an interesting. No!
Oh no! You're back. You're fine.
Am I good?
Okay.
Okay.
For a second.
I was just saying that Helen was scrubbed from that scene because she actually was there, but they showed it after she had already been evicted.
Right.
On the editing note.
Yeah. Michael, not a whole lot of good to say about Big Brother 15 in general, but especially not a lot of good to say here. I don't know. You have anything?
Yeah, I think if we try to look at just gameplay, I know it's been touched on. She really did, had to fight her way out of a corner pretty early on. And I guess that's like one good strategic move that I remember her making was, because I think there was a week when it was her, Caitlin, and Gina Marie, like all on the block together. And looking at the three of them, she was probably the obvious one who should go, but she really was able to pitch her way out of that and kind of like offered up, like, if she gets power, I want to say maybe she offered that to Helen. Like, if I win, my HOH is your HOH, or whoever she had offered that to. And she kind of followed through with that. And I think that kind of helped her maybe regain a little bit of the space that she had lost to lock into some alliances. So, I mean, I think she definitely fought hard. I think that with everything else that she did or she said in the house, I don't know if she would have beaten anybody in the final two. I think there maybe were some people who would have voted for her, but I think, as a player and strategically, I think just being a good person is part of us being a strategy. Yeah. And if you're going to make comments like that and do things like that, and there are going to be consequences. And so I think that, is a huge ding strategically, even if we kind of think of that in more of a personal sense. I think, in the game where everything you do is interpreted and you're judged on as reasons why to keep you around or get rid of you or vote for you or not vote for you, I think that's definitely has to be considered. And that's obviously, a huge strike against her.
I think that's such a good point though, Michael, because there's so many, I mean, we've had plenty of conversations over the years about BB15. And like, if you remove all of the bad stuff, it's a pretty decent season. It's like, yeah, sure. But like, if you look at it more deeply than that and actually start analyzing people's games, then yeah, you can't really divorce all of the negative behavior from a lot of their games. And that in large means that their game wasn't that great. Like, if you are behaving in a way that is causing so many people to dislike you, where can you really go? It's like, yes, the girl like won a lot of comps, and so we can give her. A lot of people were calling her like the second coming of Janelle at the time, and I'm like, I don't know about that, but even with the HOHs that she won like later on in the season, it's not like she really had any ammo to do anything with them other than listen to what Amanda wanted her to do, because she didn't really have any allies other than Amanda, because she burned everybody in the house. Like, and she didn't even try to really even make amends with people until she went to jury. So her social game was kind of ass, to be honest. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see her winning anything in the end. I mean, she could have won out towards the end. Great. I don't know if she ever even has like the chutzpah to get rid of Amanda in the end. I think that she probably tries to ride with Amanda as far as she can go, which would have been like just sickening and vomit inducing to watch. But yeah, I don't know. I think that she definitely has a lot of strengths, but I think that the all of the other nasty stuff really just held her back. So
yeah, you can't control yourself to not flip over someone's mattress. Like, that says a lot about your social game.
True.
Like,
literally, in a game that is designed around, you creating social connections with your other housemates and eventually asking them to vote to give you, at that time, $500,000. How can I ever have trust in a person like that to do well on one season, let alone 100 seasons? So,
I have a toxic trait that I'm sort of like ashamed to admit, though, because like there's that scene after the bed flip where Aaryn gets very, very nasty and very racist with Candace and is like, what you gonna do, girl? What you gonna do? And me and one of my best friends here in Philly, like, we are constantly saying that to each other when we're trying to piss each other off, and it's so toxic, but it's very effective. I would not recommend doing that, though, if you are not Black. I'm just putting that out there right now.
I guess we all have our coping ways with when it comes to BB15.
Right, that's exactly. You gotta laugh through the pain, okay?
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, is this the easiest matchup we've had so far?
I'm actually a little torn here, a little bit, just a touch, because, like I said, I think Aaryn, there is a lot of positive with her game, right? And I think that undeniably a physical threat. She was sort of a social threat in the beginning. She was in the bigger part of the power structure in the beginning, but the MVP twist really usurped that. So if that didn't exist for Alyssa and Helen and Amanda at the time, Aaryn goes deep. So I'm like, but then Rachelle, definitely much, easier to watch. I don't think that she's as dominant as a player as Aaryn. So I'm kind of like, oh God, what do I do?
You want to log on to Truth Social and see if you can get her latest thoughts and opinions to help you make a decision?
The fact that you said log on and not sign up as if I already have it, like, that's crazy.
We could pull up a mommy blog too. I'm sure that's just on YouTube. That's the platform we're sharing.
I know what you're trying to do. Okay.
I'm putting my foot down.
It's only because, like, it's all about matchup, head to head. Who's winning out over the two of them? Rachelle's not beating Aaryn like that, and that's sort of like what I'm struggling with. But at the same time,
what do you mean she's not beating her?
Like, if we were to put them both like doing competitions in Big Brother, Aaryn beats her almost.
Michael will tell you it's not all about competitions.
It's not always about competitions, but who is going to get further in the game? Aaryn would. Who's
winning a jury vote?
But if you're on the jury, you're the one voting. And I think that Rachelle is on the jury more so than Aaryn is.
But if they're in a jury vote, I'm asking who's winning?
Rachelle, obviously.
Okay. Michael?
But if you don't get to the end, does it matter?
Rachelle's
oh my God, am I really sitting here talking about Aaryn Greaves like this?
The concept of this podcast of really thinking into every conversation has Amon thinking way more on this than I ever thought we would. But that's the point of the conversations. Michael, do you have your vote decided?
Yeah.
Please feel free to cast the first vote here.
Yeah, I would vote for Rachelle. I think that Aaryn probably takes it when it comes to competitions. But I think socially, I give it to Rachelle, and I don't know. I think I think sure if you look at them like in a vacuum of when they first played, but I think like if either of them were to return, I don't see Aaryn being able to overcome her reputation if she did come back for a season. So, well, I think she could win a lot of competitions. I think especially, you know, in a 16-person season, it's pretty easy to backdoor a target within the first, you know, pre-jury portion of the game with, you know, what the odds are of having your chip drawn. So my guess would be that if, you know, Aaryn were to ever come back, that's probably what would happen. So I give it to Rachelle.
Like, so she's very obviously never coming back to Big Brother, but like you almost wonder this is not going to happen, but you almost wonder if like a network like, you know, what is it, VH1 that does House of Villains would be like, you know, who caused a lot of controversy. I don't know. I really don't think it's happening, but
I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, because those channels over there are a lot more. They don't give a damn. They want that kind of nastiness in it. So like, I was never going to vote Aaryn through.
Look, I think we all know that. So
I just want to know, everybody that's listening right now, I just want the reactions from like really like listening to me talk about her. I mean, look, again, I think that Aaryn does have a lot of positive to when it comes to the game of Big Brother. But in the game of life, she was last place. So I just think in a game that is like so social heavy, there's just really not a lot of room for that amount of error on her part. And again, like
weird.
Yeah, like I was just gonna say, like, and again, like it shows in like the way her game manifested in the end. Like she did not have any other choice but to work with Amanda, because the Amanda was the only person that was like willing to use her as a token. You know what I mean? And Amanda herself has issues, so that's kind of where the cookie crumbles.
I did try to see if Sasha was free that I could give her a cold call, but she's not answering at the moment. So I'm going to say this is an official 4-0 vote, including Sasha, because she was manifesting being a part of the decision to make this happen in our very last episode, and it didn't happen, but here we are. So not Amanda, what are we doing? Aaryn, you have been evicted from the bracket. Rachelle, congratulations. You're seeing round 2. I wasn't sure if it would happen, but
come on, Rachelle. Come on, BB Can 2. You better get up in there. I love that.
BB Can 2 making its way into round 2. Love to see it. Let's spin this wheel, which I've shuffled a couple more times as well. So far it worked. It wasn't BB Can 2 back to back. Let's see who's next.
I feel like we need like a Jeopardy-esque like tune for when the wheel is spinning.
Up next. Ooh, is this? Oh, Ryan Ballantyne. I thought my little like was getting to like Paul Abrahamian, which I was like, oh, whoa, but Ryan's good. Back to the BB Can world. BB Can 6 making its way to the bracket. I'm so excited to talk BB Can 6. Michael, this is one of my favorite seasons.
Yeah, I loved BB Can 6. That was a good season. I was very happy with the winner.
You can say that again. One of my favorite winners all time. One of my favorite seasons to watch on feeds. Back when BB Can did offer us live feeds, watching the gameplay between that entire house, especially in the like pretty much the post Ryan era, like especially like when he was in the house as well, like as we're going to get into with, you know, what happens in his game and this crucial week for him within the season, or a couple weeks in the season. Once that all amped up, that gameplay was just unstoppable. But Aman, remind us a little bit about Ryan for those who need the reminder, or maybe just never even saw Ryan play.
Ryan Ballantyne. Despite starting off under the radar, Ryan's HOH reign in week 2 would lead to him becoming a social pariah. This would lead to Ryan being nominated 4 times over the course of the game. However, in week 7, Ryan's luck would come to an end. Despite being put up as a pawn, Ryan would go on to be evicted by a vote of 6-0, placing 9th.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Canada's vote of it all, that I know you just said what it was, but I was trying to pull up Ryan's picture, so I'm trying to remind myself in this moment. It was that he was saved by Canada.
Yes.
In that moment, and then HOH Kayla had to renominate Erica, had to renominate somebody, and Erica's the one that goes up, where Ryan gets saved there and just goes out the following week instead. But Michael, like the whole thing in the beginning of the season, it was just like Ryan was HOH in week 2 and ends up getting Andrew evicted, which like I feel like to this day, neither one of these guys have to be like could possibly be over, because it just feels like it was such a bad call.
Yeah. I remember watching that and being very confused because it seemed like they were pretty close. And then I remember even just Ryan winning, it was kind of like, oh, I have no idea what he's going to do. But I still wouldn't have been able to predict that. So, but yeah, I remember him, being on the block a lot. And I know that's like, it's a hard place to play from when you're kind of viewed as the perpetual pawn. I think just in general, especially when you go up fairly early, no one, like when people are trying to map out their game plan, they want to map it out with people they think are going to be there. And so if someone falls into that pawn role, I think it's hard to kind of be included in that. So I feel like, kind of struggled to get his footing in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, he just had the unfortunate reality of just falling behind pretty early on, and I mean, we're watching it happen this season. Like once you end up on the block once, it's just so easy. It's easy because no one wants to get the blood on their hands. Oh my god. Remind me if you guys remember, like, because the week that he went home, it was up against Johnny, and I know that Derek was HOH, and they wanted Johnny gone because he was trying to come after both Kayla and Derek. So how the hell did Johnny end up staying with Ryan being on the block? That
because it's Johnny, because Johnny Mulder ripped that game wide open and there was never, I mean, obviously up until he ends up getting evicted in the triple, like the work that he put in covering his ass on all sides, every corner of that house for a couple of weeks where he really needed to do that work. It's wild to think that Ryan got evicted over Johnny there, but it's because Johnny did work.
Okay, well, I mean, I feel like that is like sort of like it's the tale of how much work Johnny put in, and also the tale of like how much not work Ryan did not put in. So, I mean, again, it's sort of like that you fall behind, and it's like it's so hard to catch back up.
At this point in the season, I want to say he was certainly somewhat of an outcast from the rest of the house. There was a lot of other groups that had been formed, Paris, Maddie, Will, Derek and Kayla, the Olivia, Allie, Johnny kind of being a group, and Erica was a part of that until she gets evicted. And Ryan just kind of as an outsider there, but he did have connections strong enough with some people. Like I want to say specifically Paris didn't want to see him go, like felt a connection. I think that was probably one of the tougher votes that Johnny was able to eventually pull over, but because Ryan was never going after Paris, they had a good thing going between the two of them, good level of trust. And I mean, it's really just like that right off the bat, deciding that, Andrew was going to be the one that goes out that week. It's like, well, now what? Where does the game go from here? Michael, I wanted to ask you, I mean, so was Terrence the only, I guess, older, house guest of your season? Am I forgetting somebody else that was up there in age for Big Brother terms?
So Nicole was in her early 40s, I believe, which she didn't look at, and I never like considered her like an older house guest. Like she was, didn't give off that energy, but I think they were the only two who were over 40.
So the question was just going to be like from your perspective as somebody who's played with an older house guest or two, like how does that like when you go into the game? Of course we all know how like alliances are formed easily with people that are like-minded or just like you in whatever way. Like did you feel that right away, like, oh, this somebody that I don't think, like, I'll have to work harder to connect with him? Terrence.
Yeah, I did, and I think part of it is also just like when people are in different points in their lives, I think you just have less in common. Like if you are still in school and you meet someone else who's in school, like that's something immediately that you have in common and experiences that come with that. So I think when people are at different stages, it's harder to find those like easy things to connect on. And I feel like especially when Big Brother starts, you're really looking for something quick to latch onto that you can make a connection that can maybe turn into something deeper. So I do think that it's hard. I think also just, people have their habits and, typically people who are younger stay up later and people who are older maybe go to bed sooner. And in Big Brother, especially, I think that can be a detriment. You know, if you're someone who goes to bed early, you're going to miss all those late night strategy meetings when it's just easier to talk strategy because there are fewer people around and it's easier to get small groups and not be seen. So I think that's, you know, something that always plays into it, that maybe, you know, it's not 100% age's fault, but age, I feel like we typically see that pattern emerge.
Yeah. And we're always talking about them on, like, you know, just because they're the older house guests here doesn't mean they're old by any means. Like Ryan comes into this season, I'm looking at the chart here, at the age of 39. But all of the other house guests, you know, in their 20s, not all of them, obviously. You have anybody that's 30 or above. Allie was age 30. Andrew, who he evicted, Ryan evicted, age 36. And Rosina, who lasted 6 days, you know, 49 years old. So you had 3 people in there that were, you know, consider a part of the age range that you would consider as an older house guest in most circumstances. He evicts one, the other one's gone. It's like, well, you really got to put in a lot of work to, you know, get your claws in deep to a game like that. You look at like a Karen, of course, in BB Can 5 that, like, you know, got her claws into a couple of people and made it far in the game, but, you know, did she get the votes at the end? No.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Ryan is a nice guy, a decent guy. I think that he just he similar to what you guys have been talking about, I think he just didn't share a lot of things in common. I think that he also was very, very, very into the game, which I think was a turnoff for some of the younger people that either weren't as into the game, so saw it as a threat, or were also into the game but perceived him a bigger threat or an annoying person because he was into the game and older, so he felt like an authoritarian figure. And to be fair, Ryan sometimes, when talking strategy and talking game with some of his housemates, would come off with a bit of like a, no, you need to listen to me. This is the way to go. This is how this game should be played, which is partly the reason why he ended up on the block so many times. So like there was a little bit of truth to that. I do wish that there was more like, you know, one-on-one outside of the game social relationships that he built, because so many of them felt like they were strictly game related, which again is to be expected. If you are, you know, the pawn from the beginning of the season, you kind of are forced to do nothing but talk game to get off the block each week, or to at least save yourself from eviction. So it's a give and a take. I think his social game definitely needed a few pointers. I think that him deciding to vote to evict Will was like a really, really bad judgment call for him. And it kind of it just put him right back up on the block immediately after being saved. It just everything, he just could not find his footing. It was a rough go. It was a rough go of it.
Yeah, I think he had a good relationship with Erica as well, is I think what the case was there. And it ended up just being Johnny and Ryan that voted for Erica to stay. I mean, even, you know, half of her own allies recognizing that, you know, Allie and Olivia specifically, you know, had to take the shot at Erica while the opportunity had so strangely presented itself. But Ryan certainly made mistakes and certainly wasn't, you know, again, set up with the age-wise, I'm going to keep going back to that, best, you know, candidates to go far. But again, that goes back to the mistake he made at the beginning of who he evicted. So I don't know, kind of feel like we've said what we need to say on Ryan. You know, I could see a world where if he played again, that it would go a little bit better, just learning from the first time. But I also don't think that I see him as like a super likely winner in a lot of scenarios. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's pretty fair.
So yeah, that is that. And I'm trying to get the wheel up again so we can find out who's up next.
Who we got? Let us know.
Let's do it.
Spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it.
So Ryan's opponent is going to be, will it be BB Can, BBUS, a different franchise? Who's to say? But Ryan is up against Allison Irwin.
Oh,
wow.
There's our big name of the episode.
Yeah, it's a huge name.
Let's do it.
This one is a pretty wait, hold on. Where is she? There she is. This is BB4, right? Sometimes I'm getting the last names confused. Okay. Allison. On BB4, Allison began the game in a strong position, being part of the dominant Elite 8 alliance. After Allison won HOH, she began to play both sides of the house. Her deals during her HOH reign led to her being in the best position in the house, with both sides of the house wanting to keep her safe. Allison's greatest flaw was her jury management. She made an alliance with June, the only person she might have a chance of winning against. Allison was in a great position with Erica and June, planning on taking her to the final two. She was able to win the final HOH and brought June to the finale with her. Ultimately, Allison lost by a vote of 6-1. On BB7, she quickly targeted the Sovereign Six, enjoying Danielle and scheming Jace caught wind of this, which led to their nominations, excuse me. The Sovereign Six viewed Allison as a bigger threat, and she was evicted by a vote of 8-2, placing 14th.
There we go. Allison coming in here to break the streak of this gender war that we've been having with these matchups. Michael, thoughts on Allison Aaryn?
Yeah, I am a big Allison fan. Her and June as a duo, I think, are, still to this day, people talk about them. She obviously played the game very hard, and kind of in a very old school way. She wasn't afraid of confrontation. She wasn't afraid to draw a line in the sand, publicly say she wants someone out. And I think especially being season 4 when the game was still developing, because I think BB4 was the first season where the veto, it was like the golden veto, where they could use it on themselves apart from the one time in BB3. So, she was still, as the game was developing in strategies, and I think everyone still played in the veto in season 4 as well. So, it's a new game. She didn't have a lot to go off of. She was part of, writing the rule book that people would go on to follow. So I think was a very exciting person to watch. I was really happy that she got a second chance in All-Stars, and unfortunately it didn't, we didn't get to see the same game play out, but she's definitely one of those people you think of as a legend of the game. So I'm excited to see her pop up.
Yeah. On the topic of BB4, the Jack supporters have been rolling in him on, upset with his elimination to one Raven Walton.
They have been. So let's not make that mistake again.
Good reminder time that we do have a battle back vote if you'd like to get your voice heard there over on Patreon. Allison Aaryn. So, I mean, you could say a lot of good things about Allison from BB4. Obviously not as much throughout BB7 in the 1 week that she is there for. I think that, throughout the later stages of BB4 is where you really start to get, that formation of the Allison and June dynamic, where it's like, okay, both of us recognizing, we should go to the end together. As the story is infamously told, that, and it works out. They get to the end and one of them has to win. So, bada bing, bada boom. But the reasons why Allison felt like she needed, and, I guess vice versa as well, why Allison felt like she needed specifically June at the end with her, kind of like the way that I guess she was viewed by the people in the jury, like you see that same kind of way that she's viewed, I think, on BB7. And I know that there's like extenuating circumstances, her literally like throwing names out of the BB6 group to say that like we should target them and whatnot, and just ending up on their radar with this big force that's coming in hot, and bringing in other people to kind of work with possibly. There was just a lot of factors that were that Allison would have had to break through a lot to get into some kind of good spot in early BB7, and it just didn't happen. But I think that you can kind of look and see the through line of where she recognized that she was in BB4 to where she ended up going out, not having, it was way too early in BB7 to have like a June that she could like latch onto and say, oh, we need to go to the end. That wasn't happening yet. It was early stages of the game, and we see how that ended up there. But with that all said, I feel like everything I just described him on was kind of describing somebody who may not be the best Big Brother player, but I think that she's such a complex player that there's still so much good that you can add on aside from all that negative.
I mean, I think that the key that I think that the word that comes to mind when I think about Allison is just like adaptability. I think that she sort of like was able to really understand like what her placement was from week to week, and then figure out what's the best way to get to the end. And you're right. I think that she was sort of like one of those slow burn players where, she's obviously involved in the beginning, but really like hits the ground running in those, like in that final home stretch. And it's sort of like, it's that meme where it's like the two bad bitches that are coming together to figure out how to execute their joint slay. That's what I feel like it was between her and June. I think that she definitely needed June a little bit more than June might have needed her. And I still can never forget June's like such nonchalant reaction to winning Big Brother. She like literally just sits there and smiles like, I knew it was gonna happen. Like it was just iconic. But I think that yeah, no, I think that Allison is a pretty dynamic player, and I actually, for me, fun fact, I actually learned about Allison through BB7. I had watched BB7 before I'd watched BB4. I had known sort of like who she was just by nature of like being a fan of the show tangentially. So I was sad to see her go, even not having really seen her season yet at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I think that she's definitely a strong player, and I do wonder what she would be like if she were to come back these days.
I mean, we're watching BB26 right now, and some time has passed by the time that people are hearing this episode and the time that we're having this conversation. But there's been a couple of comparisons made to Allison. People were saying that is Leah the new Allison? Is Tucker the new Allison? People that, of course, that like the ground, the framework of what people are saying that, is like the flirt, somebody who is using, at their core, a very social game, and just a different level of social game than maybe most people do in a social game. Of course, you look to like a Survivor example. There's the Parvati's of the world that got labeled with this early on, and even to this day don't quite fully escape it. And it's an aspect of the game that an Allison played, that I'm sure she was happy to say, yes, I was using that to my advantage where I could. And I don't know. I mean, was that all she had going on? No, absolutely not. Is it what she somehow has ended up like super remembered for? Yeah. So I don't know. Again, Michael, a lot to get into with Allison.
Yeah, and I think kind of to one of Amon's points, the biggest thing that I see for her, is with her adaptability is also her perception. Because I think it's really it would have been very easy for Allison, I think, to say, if I make it to the end, I manipulated all these guys, I won all these competitions, I did all these things. The jury should respect my game because I played hard and I played a really good game. And I think that's a trap that we've seen a lot of people fall into, who they see their game through their own lens and think, if I make it, I'll be able to persuade anyone because I know how great my game is. And I think Allison, would say, I played a really strong, a really hard game and a really good game, but I know that people are mad, and I know that, they might not vote for me just based off of that. So I think that's a really powerful tool for players to have. And I think that separates, some good players from some great players who are able to, look at their own game objectively and say like, okay, yeah, here are my weak spots. How do I counteract that? And I think that was something that she really did in season 4. And, unfortunately didn't get to see her do that in All Stars. So I think that's a big point in her favor for me, at least.
She's somebody who I like, top of my list of who I would like to see back in some capacity. And I'm not talking about Amazing Race. Like, let's not do that again. She showed up for half a season or something over there. She didn't do terrible.
I thought she made like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Could have done worse. Could have done as bad.
Surprisingly, the boyfriend she went on with, they fought. Who would have guessed after everything in season 4?
But was it? I don't remember at all. Do you remember? Was it somebody that we knew? Was it a guy that we knew from the show?
It was her boyfriend Donnie, who was at home.
Was it
that season? Who she was always like, oh, he's gonna be so mad, he's gonna hate seeing this. So yeah, so who would have thought that they wouldn't have had the best run on The Amazing Race? But they were entertaining while they were there.
Right. Truly would love to see her back in some capacity. I mean, we're seeing the reemergence of so many legends in some, whether it's traders or reindeer games. Like, if Reindeer Games 2 comes along, and like, we have to be calling Allison Aaryn, right? Like, just to fulfill that like old school legend spot.
I'm here for it. A friend of mine actually met her. This is like back when I was like super hardcore trying to get on the show. And a friend of mine is a nurse, because she's from Pittsburgh. Hey, Pittsburgh. A friend of mine is back home as a nurse, and I guess Allison was there. I don't know what she was there for, HIPAA. But my friend was like, oh my God, like, you were on Big Brother. Like, what season were you on? And they were talking about it. And she was like, my friend's been trying to get on for so long. And so she gave Allison my name because Allison asked for it. And I don't know what Allison did with it, but Allison has a piece of paper with my name on it somewhere.
She pulls it out of the wash
Yeah.
a week later. She's like, Amon? What
Yeah.
that mean?
I was like, what the hell is this? Like, but this was a year, like 6 or so years ago. It was a long time ago, but yeah. She gets points for that.
Do you, Amon, I'll start with you this time. Do you feel confident in your vote in the matchup of Allison Irwin versus Ryan Ballantyne?
Allison is part of one of the best final twos of all time, and for good reason. And even with her less than stellar appearance in Big Brother All Stars, I think that's like sort of like a really, really hard thing to beat. So Ryan, I am sorry, but you must sashay away.
All right, Michael.
Yeah, I agree. I think this one's got to go to Allison.
Okay, I think I will very likely also make it 3-0 there. I will also be evicting Ryan, but I do think that there is possibly an argument out there. I'm not prepared to like sit here and fully make it, but just to think of a world where Ryan could, not making the mistakes that he makes, and Amon, you were talking about him being such a super fan. He's super into these games, and maybe he was gaming a little too much. Like maybe he does have a level of being able to tone it back a little bit.
A little too much. He wasn't actually doing game a little too much, which I think is like the cardinal sin of a lot of super fans is that you talk. You do nothing though. It's sort of like what we're seeing right now with Quinn and with Joseph. It's a lot of like, but not enough of actually doing things or like making things happen for yourself or doing things that are completely like just antithetical for what you should be doing as a super fan.
Hey, both of those two could be evicted by the time this episode comes out. Just saying. But who knows? It's not that far away. Just we're banking a little here. But all right, yeah, 3-0 on the Allison Irwin vote. Congratulations, legend, going on to round 2. So you'll love to see it. Unfortunately, what I don't love to see, or what I would love to see still, I don't know if Michael would love to see, but I'd like to see a BB24 pop up here.
I would too.
We are, as always, here for the mess. So we spin the wheel for the first person in this third matchup, final matchup of this episode. And let's see who we got. It's coming to a stop. It's going to be Tom Green.
Really? Not another duo. Not another duo.
No, and we didn't even talk about because Michael, we've had so many duos get wiped off the board. We had now Dick and Danny as well. I don't think we mentioned. So Dick and Danny, Ty and Jed from BB Can 9, McCranda are both gone. Now Tom and Kato, like it's weird stuff. But Tom Green is our latest player coming up on the wheel here as we've dipped into celebrity now like 4 times, and aside from the Omarosa, it's been pretty heavy on the BB Celeb 2. Weird stuff.
It has been. This was his eviction was the infamous Tamar dancing and praising the Holy Spirit eviction, which everybody had such a huge problem with for whatever reason. But anyway, Tom worked with Kato and became an outcast over the course of the season, eventually being evicted by Lolo, who put him on the block against Candy. Like that's all they had.
Oh yeah, no, actually I specifically remember BB Celeb 2 had like nothing on the wiki. It had to like pull,
but I mean
the editors took that season off.
BB Can 2 really felt like a flash in the pan, like in terms of like celebrity seasons. Like it felt like celebrity season 1 lasted a bit, season 2 happened like that, and then celebrity 3 we just all like hated so much that it just dragged. So I mean they were only there for what, like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So
yeah.
Michael,
what's your order of ranking of the 3 of them seasons?
Celebrity season 2 was definitely my favorite. And then with the other 2, probably season 1 then season 3, but I enjoyed season 3. I know a lot of people didn't like it, and I think that's largely because you had Misha and Todrick really winning basically everything for so long. But I thought there were some fun moments. I don't know. One of my favorites, like funny things that I remember watching when Carson Kressley, because he knew Todrick and he was talking with, I think maybe it was Shane, and was like, well, Todrick wouldn't lie to me about this. Like, he wouldn't lie.
Like
so
the frustration that just exudes out of me to hear it reminding me about that. And I just heard him groan.
And then the reason that he like tried to justify it was just because like he's like, well, you know, like even if I'm on the same show as Carson, like I don't know, like Michelle and RuPaul and Carson and Ross, they all have like this little clique, and like I feel like I'm not a part of it. I'm like, so you're bringing up your work grievances here? Like it's just,
I cannot tell you how excited I am to evict Carson Kressley and Cynthia Bailey from this bracket. That is going to be a great day, because they will pay for ruining that season.
I mean, be careful what you wish for, because you might get like freaking Carson Kressley versus Gina Marie. So
you know what? I'll think about that one a lot more than you would expect. Anyway, we're talking Celeb 2 here. Again, we've had Kato come up. We had Jonathan Bennett came up, Michael, in a absolutely insane matchup that Aman is hoping that I'll never bring up, but this is a great opportunity to. We had Jonathan Bennett go through over Corey Brooks of BB18.
That's an upset. I mean, I'm not upset about it, but on paper, it doesn't seem like that would happen.
It did. We had, the Chaos King himself, Mike Bloom, here, and that's where we got. But we have Tom Green here today. Michael, were you in the Tom Green camp, like being a fan of his? There was such a split in the fandom of people that did and didn't like him.
Yeah, so I feel like I was more neutral on him. I was rooting for, the people he wasn't working with. Like I really wanted Tamar to win. Lolo Jones, I think, is incredible TV.
Yes.
Like, so I really liked, the people that were working against him. So like by default, I was like, oh, I kind of have to cheer against you. But I liked him as a person. I think, even like he was level-headed. I felt like he was, thinking through things, which I can appreciate. Like I love the messy people. I love the people who want to fight and cause drama. So I think that's why I was gravitated more towards the other side, because they would, yell at each other.
They were a mess.
Then within, a half hour, they're like, okay, but this is what we're going to do. And we're going to stick to the plan. Like I just loved them so much. Get out of my room.
And that was about Kato. What was that about, Kato or Tom? I think it was
Kato.
It was Kato. I mean, it generally applied to both of them because they just, at that time did not have the kindest feelings towards one another. I will say I was pretty anti Tom Green. This man who goes on to win AFP, and you get why, he is very much a fan favorite in the conventional sense of what, especially a casual audience is going to be looking for in their favorite player. But I'm in the same boat as Michael. I was looking at the, Tamar group, that room, that bedroom that the Chaos existed in. I wanted that room to have success, specifically Tamar. And Tom Green was standing in the way of that. Look at his stats there for such a short season: 2 HOHs, 2 vetoes, 3 times on the block, like a very active participant. I'm on in BB Ken. We keep saying Ken, BB Celeb too.
I mean, no, Tom, I was surprised that they did not get rid of him sooner, because they had multiple chances to get rid of him, but he was able to stay in between, like him and Kato. Kato went, obviously, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that Kato and Lolo had like that big blow up, and he was I think he also stayed over Joey, if I'm not mistaken, which I think a lot of them perceived him to be a bigger threat, which was interesting because Tom goes on to win all these comps. So he definitely, I think that he sort of had like this, he's a comedian, right? So like he sort of like had like this unflappable energy, which I did enjoy, because he like his presence made so many of the other contestants just butthurt. And it was just like, yes, I wanted Tamar to win in the end, but I was also like, girl, calm down. like he's really inoffensive. Like he's not really doing anything to you guys. He's just trying to play the game the same way that you guys are. But who he chose to align himself with, ultimately helps him in the beginning, because Kato does save him at one point with the veto, but like the two of them as a package just never really seemed to really come together and gel, even with the dysfunction that was Tamar, Natalie, Eva Marie, and Lolo Jones with a sprinkle of candy in there. I remember a lot of us were calling them like the second coming of the Coven Alliance from BB10, because they were just always just at odds with one another. But yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, Matt. I think that he really was a very, very strong and active participant and a good sort of like foil to like what we would probably consider like the fan favorite of the season. So I enjoyed him very much as a presence on the season, and I think that he was a pretty solid player as well. I like the way that he ran his HOH when he had everyone come up and like have like a one-on-one with everyone and try to figure out who was the best person to get rid of and trying to make those deals. So he knew what he was doing. I just think that he didn't have enough allies.
I've recently been going through binging a lot of Real Housewives seasons, and I'm currently up to Atlanta. So when I'm done, I'm going to have to go back through this season and rewatch now knowing Candy much more than I did at the time. Because to like see the Candy that I know ending up on the block in all the spots that she did here by looking at this chart, I'm like, who was she letting play her like that? Like, how did this happen? But, obviously usually had her footing anyway because of the bond that, or the bond or lack thereof, or whatever was going on with her and Tamar there. So yeah, again, Tom, a very contentious player from both the fandoms and the people inside the house, but I don't know. I mean, he was a contender. He was a contender to take it all the way. So when he goes out, what is it? I mean, I can look at the graphic here, 6th place. And that is after he gets out Natalie, right? He gets out Natalie, Eva Marie, then gets evicted next to Candy on Lolo's HOH. I mean, at that point, what was he just working with Dina? Like that was the only person left that would like
that was
the time of day.
He had saved her at one point as well with one of the that was kind of like his only saving grace. But I mean, what was Dina going to be doing? Yeah. What was Dina going to do? Okay.
One thing I will say is bring Celebrity Big Brother back. Let's do it. I mean,
I'm fine with them waiting a couple more years,
I mean, I'm loving reindeer games, so as long as we have something in that spot,
that's fine. Yeah, I would much rather take reindeer games over BB4 or BB Celebrity before.
I'm shocked at how, like, when I first heard, Celebrity Big Brother, I was like, obviously watch it, but the way that these celebrities fight, like, harder than some people, like, who are cast on regular seasons, I'm like, I didn't see that coming, and I really love that aspect of it because. I mean, yeah, you had some who were like, oh, I don't really care or didn't have a clue what was going on. But the way that some of these people fought for it and argued and made good TV, I was here for it.
Yeah. A lot of people will look at the celebrity seasons and talk about the quitters. And, that's really what they spend too much time focusing on. But there's definitely a lot of strong gamers from that cast. I wouldn't be surprised to see a good amount of the celebrity players go through the second round.
I think it's because, even, we joke that a lot of these people aren't really like, A-listers, but like we're never really supposed to be expecting A-listers on here, but they're still celebrities within their own right. And they're used to being in the public eye and used to criticism. So I think that they just didn't give a damn. Like they were just like, well, who am I? Like people already know who I am. Like I'm already a scandalous person coming in here. Like what is Big Brother fans? What are they going to do? Like, which some of them might be surprised. Some of them might have been surprised that this is like Big Brother fandom is not exactly your general populace. Okay. So.
Yeah. Let's find out who Tom Green is going to be up against in this final matchup. Final player picked here of the night.
Here we go.
BB24. Come on.
This episode is going by so fast.
Well, Michael. Imagine.
Victoria. Wow. Okay, this is interesting.
Victoria, who was our sample player, one of our sample players from our first episode preview. Yeah, we pulled Victoria. I don't remember who we pulled her against.
I can't remember either, but I think she lost. I think she won actually. I can't remember, but I feel like she won. I think. Whatever. All right, wow. Victoria was known for playing a lazy, quiet game, not engaging in game-related moves, and not making any definite alliances. Despite being the most nominated house guest in history, she managed to get off the block 3 times. She had a final 2 with power player Derek, and he protected her throughout the game. She ended up making it to the final 3 along with Derek and Cody. She placed 3rd when Cody infamously decided to take Derek to the final 2 instead of her, becoming the final person evicted.
Our first player here from Big Brother 16 to enter the bracket. Michael, I don't know if you were manifesting that at all, but this is where we get to go here.
Yeah, let's do it. I will say season 16 is one of my least favorite seasons, but I'm still happy to talk about it.
So I mean, I know I'm not the only one by any means that jumped into Big Brother with Big Brother 16. I think it's a jumping in point for so many people for strangely for different reasons. I mean, I know a lot of people are said to have been brought in on the back of one Frankie Grande, a younger audience being ushered in. He wasn't exactly the reason that I showed up, but that's besides the point. So the season as a whole, I think, is always going to feel different to me, despite it not being one of the best in the long run, because it was my first. With that all said, Victoria is the one player in Big Brother history that is the most that stands out the most. How do I phrase this? The most third place, second place feeling player. Every time I think of her, I think that she finished the season in second place, and then I have to remind myself that the guys were at the end. But just because of her, status as a GOAT, her being on the block so many times, I think of her as somebody who got 0 votes at the end and didn't win the season. That's obviously not the case. But can we just look at this graphic for a second? 10 times nominated. That is insane.
I mean, as Jocasta would say, look, she never went home. Being dumb got you far. Yeah, Victoria, I feel like, she is the quintessential pawn, right? I think she's probably the pawnest pawn that ever pawned. There is no greater pawn than Victoria. And I think for that, that will always be her legacy. And I do think that, yes, there can be conversation to be had about, was she always playing the game? No. But when she did play the game, did she make smart decisions? I would say for the most part, yeah. I think that she never really did anything that was going to jeopardize her pawn chip. She was always going to be the pawn and never go home, because she sort of stuck to the guidance of Derek. And so as long as Derek was able to work his magic, she was going to be fine, and she trusted that. So it's, on one hand, it's if this is working, why would I change it? Now, if you want to win, then it's a different story. But if you're just trying to make it as far as possible, and Derek is, Derek, hey, so, I think, there really isn't much in terms of specific game moves that we can really talk about when it comes to Victoria. But I do think that in terms of social, social run-ins, I think there's one fight in particular that I'm struggling to remember. It was something about Zach. I think it's when Zach got exposed for all of the bullshit that he was dealing with, and I think it was the bomb squad or the detonators that were trying to oust him from the alliance because he was just doing too much, and he tried to blame a lot of it on Victoria, and Victoria totally owned him in the argument. I never did any of the things that you're saying. They said that I was doing. So she could definitely hold her own, especially against Zach. Rest in peace to the pink hat. But yeah, I think for the most part, she's the greatest pawn of all time.
Yeah, I think with her specifically in this season, I'm a big, advocate of saying you have to play to the season that you have. And I think, unfortunately for her, she's in this season where you have Derek and Cody and Frankie and Caleb and, Zach earlier on, who are linking up, who are all very strong competitors. So, when I think about okay, well, what could she have done differently? I can't really think of a whole lot, because I think that had she tried to stir the pot more, they would have gotten rid of her. I think that unfortunately she was in a very bad situation just with who was cast on the season and with who was winning competitions. I don't really see another path for her. So I think, whether how intentional it was or not, identifying Derek as someone who's key to the power structure and getting on their good side, I think that's a very valid strategy to make it far. So, I do give her some props for that. Again, I don't necessarily see where there was a path or a matchup that she would have, if she had snuck into that final two, who she could have beaten. But, with the season that she had and who the cast was that season, I think she did the best she could. And I also think, just being likable or not being part of drama, if you can slip under the radar in that way. And there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of big personalities this season. So I think ultimately with what she had and who her options were to work with and align with to make it far in the game, I think she did the best that she could. So, whether some of that she might have fallen into or how much of it was 100% intentional, I'm not totally sure, but hey, she survived the block. She had, 10 opportunities. She could have gone home and she didn't. So there is something to be said there.
10 times. It's
10
crazy.
times.
It's funny to me thinking back to the punishment that her and Caleb had, being tied together with the vines and all that whatnot. Just like the two players in that specific circumstance being two players outside of like the core of Derek and Cody and I don't know to an extent, I don't know, Frank, whatever, the group that was kind of always going to be on the outs of specifically Derek and Cody, that obviously were being brought along both in different ways, but I don't know, just a funny way to look back at that punishment with the two of them, which I would like to see more often. I feel like that's a fun punishment.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys both covered it very well with the things that we really can talk about with Victoria, as so much of the game was played around her. Like you guys said, like what more could she have done? I think she was as involved as she possibly could have been given the circumstances of who she was playing with. And, I'm trying to think like if she got cast on a 17 or a 15 instead, does it look that much different? No,
I don't. I think it does, because I don't think that there are a ton of players in like, I guess like recent seasons that really see the extreme value in the GOAT as much as Derek did with Victoria. Like Derek like molded her into the perfect GOAT to the point where like he had everybody in his alliance like absolutely agree upon the fact that if any of them took her to the final two, she was going to be the one to get the votes. Like do not like don't try to like
don't try to bring her to the end, even though
for
some reason I think she was, but yeah.
So I don't necessarily know if I've ever really seen that like GOAT creation as much in recent seasons, or if people really care that much. I think that if people are outside of alliances these days, they're just gone. You know what I mean? So I do think that's not really much of a point for Victoria, because that's more so Derek's doing. But it's like when you realize what kind of position that you're in, you play to what you can. And like Victoria is not as dumb as people like Zach made her out to be. She definitely knew a little bit of what was going on. She just didn't really have to do much about it. It's kind of like similar to Nicole. Like so many people were so upset with her winning in the end of BB18 because they felt like she wasn't, because she came into the game wanting to be like Derek. So they held her to that standard of trying to be like Derek, which she was never going to be able to do because she's not Derek. And so when she actually got to the end, people were like, she didn't really do much. It's like, well, yeah, she did. She just didn't have to do a flashy game because there was no need for it. And I feel like you can foster a little bit of that with Victoria as well. There really wasn't need for a flashy game, because what would be the point of that for her?
Yeah, she would have just been blowing up her spot if she had tried to do more.
Yeah. So I think that if this goes in the direction that I anticipate it probably will, in this vote between Victoria and Tom, I will say at least I think we'll have a little bit of fun in the losers bracket, Amon, when we get to Victoria. I feel like we'll have some fun conversations where what we do over on Patreon with the losers bracket is talk through, again, these people that have lost these matchups and compare them and figure out who the worst of the bunch is. So putting her up against other people that will, like, I don't know, I feel like she makes it like past a round of that, which is not a good thing in the sense of losers bracket. I feel like she'll be in consideration to be possibly, but I don't know. We'll have that conversation when we do. I just feel like it'll be fun. We'll see. But let me not put the cart before the horse here. Maybe she's going through to round 2. I don't know. I am beyond tempted to cast a vote for her because I feel like I would be the only one doing so, and it would be safe to do so. And I just think it would be funny because I like Victoria and I didn't love Tom Green. But I don't know what to do.
I'm Listen, I'm leaning towards Victoria because similarly to the Lawan vote, 10 times. And 6 out of those 10 times were consecutive. Like she was on the block.
Let's not forget the Battle of the Block did exist.
Yes, it did. But still, I mean, if we're going to count that as a mark for Derek having had the potential to go up and never go up, then I think and also you should give that to Victoria for going up and surviving each time. So like, again, it's like, look, a lot of like what made Victoria Raffaelli the player that she was in BB16, some of it had to do with the fact of who she was as a person, right? Like a lot of people didn't really respect her as like a game player because they thought that she wasn't very intelligent. A lot of them also I remember like there was also like this whole thing in the house where it's like, oh my god, like who's gonna take turns sleeping with Victoria tonight, because she always needed a partner to sleep with. She wanted to cuddle with somebody and they had to take turns cuddling with Victoria, and she just felt like this annoying little sister to a lot of the people. But in that, it's like, okay, then how is she supposed to work with anybody if nobody is willing to work with her? And the only person that wanted to work with her was the most dominant person in the game. So again, it's like, oh, like you can't really give her everything, but like she took what she could, and like it was 10 times, 10 times more than anybody ever, and she survived all the way to the finale night. I'm having a hard time matching that up with Celebrity Big Brother here. I'm sorry. Like it kind of just comes down to the fact that Tom Green played for 20 plus days and Victoria was there for almost 100.
I understand.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe I'm not going to cast a vote for Victoria because if Aman would like, if Aman feels more passionately about it and is going to cast that vote, I do think, and I've been kind of like teetering this line lately of putting the more fun pick through, even if I think that the other player might be a better player overall. Looking at you, Jack versus Raven. So I think that I want to like pump the brakes on that a little bit. I will cast the first vote. I haven't done that yet. And I will put it for Tom. And I'm being very brave in doing so, again, as a not very big tomboy. Michael, do you know your vote?
I think so, yeah. So, like, as much as I would love to vote for Victoria, because I do like, as a character and watching the season, like, because at that point, like, I think what made BB16 like one of my least favorites was it was pretty obvious what was going to happen from week 3 maybe, and I like when there's a power struggle, when there's a back and forth. So like there was part of me that was like rooting for Victoria, because if anything was going to shake up, it was going to be her doing something or winning a random comp. So like I do have like a soft spot for her, that I did enjoy her. But I think ultimately, I think Tom was a little more active of a player and Victoria was a little more passive. And I don't think you have to win competitions to be an active player, but I just don't see the influence that she had on a lot of the big decisions. So I think I've got to give it to Tom, although I would love to give it to Victoria. But I will say that is a very, very fair point about, 97 days versus a 20 plus day season. Like it's just mentally, it is a lot different to go through, to be like, oh, I know I'm done in 4 weeks. And it's like, oh, I've got another 50 plus days or whatever when you're only at the halfway point. So I think that it's very hard to compare the two, because they even though it's the same game, the same format, it's a very different experience. But sorry, Victoria, I've got to go with Tom on this one.
I just think that Tom, in a world where he doesn't hitch his wagon to Kato and maybe picks a better ally, I think Dina, could have been perfectly in his pocket, and just if anybody in that bedroom, the Tamar bedroom, ended up like being willing to work with Tom in some capacity, and I think that there could be some way that happens. And if he has even one more number on his side, that's not Kato, I think that things could end well for him. And even if it's not that cast, I think that I could just see him doing better. And unfortunately, we're talking about Victoria as the other option. Aman, would you like to cast a sympathy vote for Victoria?
I am voting for Victoria to go through to the next round. I think that she has also, like, her name has become a noun and a verb within the Big Brother community. You don't want to be Victoria. You don't want to be the Victoria of the season. But again, like, look, Victoria should have been final 2. I agree with what you said earlier, man, at the top of the conversation. She should be final 2. The only reason that she wasn't is because Cody was dumb. Let's just call it spade a spade. Cody was dumb, and it's also because Derek made everybody else feel bad. Okay, yep. So kudos to Derek again. So I just think that she's just like such a staple, and like I've been thinking a lot about BB16 recently, and I have, because I've sort of like gone along with like the general consensus that BB16 isn't like, it's sort of like a crappy season, but I don't know, I've sort of grown a little bit fonder over it over these past recent years. I don't know why, like, per se, but I just feel like it is sort of like a nice like reset after BB15. Anything would have been, to be honest.
And the amount of stars that have come from it, stars being, big players that have come out of it.
A lot. Yeah, it really has. Yeah, they've pulled a lot of people from the season, and it definitely, it's a lot more interesting on a rewatch. I think I'll say that at least.
Well, in a 2-1 vote, we are going to we'll recap here. We'll go in reverse order. Tom Green is going through to round 2. Victoria staying behind, and I think we'll have some fun with the losers bracket and Victoria's inclusion there. So Victoria, Big Brother 16, is staying behind, is evicted here. Allison Aaryn is advancing to round 2, while Ryan from BB Can 6 has been evicted from the bracket. We have also going through from BB Can 2, Rachelle, seeing round 2, while Big Brother 15's Aaryn has been evicted. Michael, those are the matchups. Those are the results. I'm hoping that it was somewhat of what you were expecting to see or hoping for in some way.
Yeah, it was fun. I will say, I think, did Victoria get the most votes out of the?
She did.
The place in the loser bracket. So hey, look at that. She's already got a little bit of a leg up, maybe going into that bracket. But no, this was fun. I loved it.
Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
It was a great time. I hope we'll definitely get you back in at some point if you'd be down to join us again, as we will be here for a while. Where can people find you online if you want people to find you online?
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm still on. I tweet about the show, so I think my handle is Michael Bruner 01, and then I honestly don't know what my Instagram handle is. I'm not a big social media person, but I think I'm most active on Twitter or X now, but it's still Twitter. But
still Twitter, always Twitter. Well, there you go. Everybody go check out Michael's thoughts throughout the remainder of Big Brother 26. It's been wild so far. I'm sure it'll be wild all the way through. And just thanks again, Michael. Aman, what else is going on for you, for us? Closing thoughts.
Yes. Thanks again, Michael. We really appreciate it. It was so great having you. Yeah, you can follow me, of course, everywhere at Aman Adwin. You can sign up for our Patreon. We've got lots and lots of cool stuff headed your way. Early access, exclusive tea for upcoming guests, things of that nature. So if you really want your extra dose of the diary room, we highly recommend that. And if you want to have a good say in some of this battle back stuff, because right now some of these votes are getting a little stacked. Okay, so if you want your voice to be heard, join the Patreon.
There we go. Of course, follow the podcast at Diary Room PCast on Twitter, sometimes known as X, but not if we can do anything about it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already, so you don't miss when the episodes drop, usually on Tuesday mornings. Sometimes when we throw a little bonus episode in, you never know what's going to happen, but usually Tuesday mornings for these. Leave us a 5-star rating and review, please, if you have not already, especially on the Apple Podcast feed. It is a big help in getting more people to see the podcast when they go searching for Big Brother podcasts. I'm on Twitter at Matt Ligori. Of course, check out the Free Agents podcast, where we are talking about the Challenge 40. And I think that's about it. So thank you again, Michael, for joining us. And Aman, get us out of here.
Yes. Until next time, guys, please go to the diary room.